All right, welcome and good evening, everybody. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. I will call the meeting to order subject to Section 1983 Wisconsin State Statutes. Our first item here is adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes that we need to make here?
There are no changes from administration.
All right, we'll take a motion to adopt.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pat, do you want to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is recognition of visitors, and as always, rules for public comment are as follows. Please approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you would like to address. A lot of time is 3 minutes per individual, or 6 if you're representing a group that is present at the meeting. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. And the board will not act on any comments that are made during the meeting, and the presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. And the public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken to extend. And please refer to our public comment policy listed on the agenda for a full description of this section of the meeting. So would anybody at this point care to be recognized at this time? You want to come up? Yep, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Terry Schoonover, and I live actually way down the river between Alma and Cochrane. As many of you know, we have new assembly districts now, new legislative maps. And Prescott is now in Assembly District 29, which runs from Trempealeau all the way up here, over to Blair, Pigeon Falls. I'm here to introduce myself. I'm running for State Assembly to represent you. A little background, again, just a minute or two. I spent 20 years at Mayo Clinic as an emergency management coordinator. So I worked with policemen and firemen. And as you know, so they can be fairly strong-willed folks. And the reason we got stuff done was because we respected each other. I grew up in Loyal. I don't know if anyone knows what Loyal, Wisconsin is. And oldest of 9. We had a great, well-funded public school. We all graduated, gave us a great start. I understand that the state, for education to thrive, the state and the school district needs to partner up. And I'm here just to let you know I'm aware of the funding mandates and the state funding issues and how hard it is. I will be a supporter of public schools. I've got a good website. I think I gave Courtney my contact information if there's anyone who has any questions on that. And I'll certainly stick around if there's any questions from other folks. But other than that, I just appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself, and thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks. Anybody else care to be recognized at this time? All right, we're going to move on. Thank you. Good news. Rick, is that you first? Or
We're going to start with the administrative team. I have Matt Smith, our activities director, bringing forward one of the firsts for the Prescott Public Schools, and that we had a Division I team compete down at state, and remarkable outcomes, but also just engagement over the last 5 years.
I'm going to hand the mic over to Coach Schley right away, but yeah, we're just very proud of them. They're just rolling back into town this afternoon, being down at University Ridge Golf Course, and as Dr. Scusa said, Division I, state runners-up. So I think a round of applause right away to start off there.
Yeah, we are definitely fresh off of the trip here. The girls, did amazing down there. Just want to thank everyone for their support. We felt that over in Madison, and just an incredible season for these guys. On social media, some of you guys follow us. Just kind of mentioned that making the jump to Division I this year was, it could have been demoralizing for a team that's had so much success and having to go up against these huge schools from all over the state, some of the biggest schools in the state. And these guys just never wavered. They never had any kind of, feeling bad about it or, that woe was me kind of attitude. It was all right, how can we win another state title? And that was our focus all year, and that was these guys' focus, and they went for it. And we didn't come up with the gold like we mentioned in the post today, but we came out with a silver trophy, and we're the best public school in the state, and that's pretty incredible when you're talking about schools like Middleton and Arrowhead that are 5 or 6 times our size. So. Just a phenomenal job by these guys, and these guys really are the ones that did all the work. They're the ones competing out on the course and grinding out there, and it was a grind. I mean, for those who followed, it came down to the last 9 holes again for the 3rd straight year, where we kind of pulled away on the last stretch there, and just again a testament to the champion mentality of all these guys, to never give up. And it was just incredible to be a part of with myself and Coach Ryder, and even Coach Ava Soleil stepped in and helped out a little bit for Coach Ryder, who had an injury this past week. So just any kind of adversity that our team faces, these guys always step up and perform. So we're super proud of that.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, girls.
Way to go, girls.
I can't help myself. I got to ask, Chad. Division II, you guys would have won by how many strokes?
90 shots.
I
90
saw, yeah.
strokes.
Yeah.
So congratulations, girls.
In Middleton, they came from 9 strokes down to beat, enrollment of 2,400 kids.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Well done, girls.
Dang. Good stuff, guys.
And we had a hole in one, too.
I know.
I saw that.
Yeah. Miss Farron over there. It's awesome.
And Mr. Figgy.
Only the 11th one ever, and 2 of them are from Prescott.
I was going to say, yeah, that's the second one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Not
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good luck.
Hope
Trying
you're
to
feeling
follow
all right. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening. Josh Figgy, Prescott High School, just doing some good news from around the district and also from the high school. In terms of the 3 other buildings, the 2 elementaries and the middle school, they've had parent-teacher conferences Monday, Tuesday, and then again tonight, and just reported a really good turnout, a lot of parent engagement, and really good conversations with teachers. I want to give a shout out to our nutrition staff and the other 3 buildings who did, I don't know if they called it Bring Your Parent to Lunch days, but just really kind of cool to have that re-engagement, partnering with parents, bringing parents or family members or guardians into the building, and giving them a chance to see what we do, and also spend some time during the day just being part of the school community and kind of creating that cohesiveness. I think that's the first time we've done that since COVID. And as a parent of 2 kids at 2 different buildings, just seeing the amazing job the nutrition staff and the staff at those buildings did was phenomenal. I've got a lot of shout outs here, but I think this is kind of what we do is, we want to celebrate. So I want to give a shout out, and they kind of left, and Katie's not here, but our student leadership group for the high school is a brand new group that we created this year. We merged the Student Council and the National Honor Society together and did a series of leadership summits in August. And what they came up with was really 3 initiatives. And I think they're pretty telling. Unprompted, they came up with wanting to appreciate staff and figure out ways to appreciate educational staff. How to engage the community in more community service and do more for the Prescott community and surrounding communities. And then how to enhance culture and climate in the high school and across the district. And unlike a lot of goals that I think students sometimes make that are lofty at the beginning and then lose sight very quickly, I'm really proud of our group that they've taken really tangible steps and actually made these things a reality over the past 7 weeks. Some of the leaders that have really stood out and kind of mustered that leadership group are Jeannie Roll, who just left and was a state champion golfer and softball player. Katie Hooper, who's typically here, Sydney Herr, Allie Tabayan, Sophie Perez, Cooper Langer, Will Markert, have just done a phenomenal job and taken a lot of their own personal time to go to other buildings, and just came to us today with a couple more community projects that will help out Prescott communities. So if you happen to see them or any of our leaders, give them a pat on the back because they're really living kind of in their mission. And then to our teaching staff, with a failed referendum last year, I think a lot of people could have just kind of tried to tread water this year. And I'm really proud of our staff, especially in the building, to try and innovate and push forward this year. And I want to just do a couple shout outs, and we've got a couple here that I'm going to call up in a moment. But innovation comes to mind with a lot of our staff. Tracy Budworth, Allie Langer, who took over yearbook this year, and in the span of one summer, reimagined it into a broadcast media class. And so if you have an opportunity, we'll share these out. They're doing a weekly newscast with students, and you can get updated information about not only Prescott High School, but happenings around the school district. They're doing weekly podcasts, and they're 2 episodes in, with 4 episodes every week. So their last episode was about homecoming, a recap of homecoming. They're pretty amazing, the professional quality that they continue to push. Chris Dweski taking over entrepreneurship, photography, marketing this year, and adding a lot of things through grant money and partnerships with community businesses. So they added a full coffee shop this year, a snow cone maker, a t-shirt maker, so we can do all that stuff in-house now, and so that's just launching. Our music teachers, Jason Canfield, Brittany Camrath, splitting time between the middle school and high school, and adding programming to the middle school while also holding serve at the high school has been pretty amazing for them to double up their time. This isn't my normal attire, the Kindness Ninja thing. So today was Unity Day. We celebrated Kindness Week this week across the district. A lot of that was spearheaded by our counseling group, but up here, Vanessa Mayone, one of our counselors, really took the lead, did tie-dyeing with kids K through 12 the other night in the art room, and brought them in, and has worked with our inclusivity group to just kind of really help foster inclusivity and kindness across the school. And then finally, one of the investments the school board made last year and saw promising were our 2 phenomenal tech ed teachers who are here tonight, Kyle Schmidt and Logan Figueroa, and saw the premise, and I think it was pretty unprecedented for the most part, to invest in being one of the first districts in the state and one of the only districts in the nation to have their own sawmill and kiln, and really take everything from the production level all the way to the end level. So they have an update for you guys tonight, which I think is pretty cool. If you've had an opportunity to be in back when they're cutting, it's absolutely phenomenal what the kids are seeing, but I can't say it any better than they can, so I'm going to invite them up.
Thank you. So I'll kind of talk off the mic here, but so all this is just a quick PowerPoint. We just finished it because we added in the totals from what the kids did today. So we couldn't skip those numbers.
Thank you.
So you'll see that on those papers there, the totals. I'm going to steal one here. Fast A. So on page 1 there, we're just talking about, like, it's not just about cutting wood, we're building character, we're teaching the kids about paying it forward. Besides, we put math and science towards the bottom there just because there's so many different elements to why we're doing this. But the work ethic, business ethics, what do you charge for material? You want to overcharge like you can in some markets. So we're teaching them that balance of marketing and being an honest business owner. Okay, then there's the different manufacturing processes that we talked about earlier that most students just don't see. Sure, you can show them a YouTube video, but it's just not the same. Boys in high school, they got to move and groove, and sometimes sitting in their classroom isn't the best thing for them. So there on the second page, it'll say like just mill, the $6 manufacturing enterprise class, they're heading this. So they're doing most of the physical labor that's going into this. The other classes jump in once in a while, and we kind of take a break if they need something, we just do something different with them. And so we're trying to build a base right now by using all of our classes that are woods-based. And so we're heading that up. So there's a picture there of all the students in manufacturing enterprise. That particular day, every one of them cut their first board. So the mill stats, so basically we can take a 22-inch log, which is 2,000-pound log basically, and they're currently running the class 95% on their own, I'm standing off to the back and I'm saying, don't get hurt, don't do that, or whatever. But they are making all the decisions. So their main goal is to go after efficiency and communicate with each other. I don't tell them that they can't do something or they should do something. They make all those decisions. So they started off with, maybe they finish a quarter of a log in a day. Now they're to the point where they finish about 90 to 95% of that log where it is cut, done in dimensional lumber and stacked in the rack. So they're making anywhere from $500 to $2,500 if we were to purchase it within a week's time.
Oh, jeez.
So then you'll turn to the page where it talks about our kiln. The construction class built the kiln as promised. They continuously made updates on it, and it is running, full tilt right now. And about every month, we have another batch of wood completed. It might have to go maybe 2 more weeks beyond that, based on how green the wood is or how dense the wood is. So there's some of the signs. So another thank you is the purchase of the planer from 2 years ago. That also helps us save $2,000 a year plus the machining of the wood. That planer helps with that as well. So you're talking like $2,300 a year. Page there it says rack number 1. Students came up with these numbers. Short story, that rack number 1 has, depending on market prices, $8,000 to $9,000 worth of product in it. And then from rack 2, they filled that one. This one had different species of wood in it, so that was about $6,000 to $6,800 worth of material. And then students are tracking every single thing. So the page there, it says hot off the mill. If you look closely, you can see the numbers on there. So as it comes off the mill, the kids are measuring it. They're calculating the board feet. Right, instantly goes on the end of the board so that they can track it, come up with their totals, put a price on what do they do for that day so that they can track their efficiency. And then there's a date of 10/15 on the next page. I'll skip to the bottom. There's the cool numbers there, but it's $15,000 to $17,000 that they have saved in generated revenue for our program. So that was yesterday, was the grand total. So they said, let's go a little bit more. So then you turn to 10/16, another page, skipping to the bottom. So our current total is $19,334. So that the students have paid for the mill, the kiln, everything that we've stuck into it material-wise. So we're there.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
we'll give that to our students. A couple of them said they were going to come here, but I don't know if it's Friday.
They're still out there working.
So other elements like our welding program, Logan's kind of taken over that. So they have made ramps, helped build the logs. They've made sawdust collection trap and added that to the mill. So we didn't have to pay for those items. Those were in-house projects. Again, also paid for. Then the last little piece there, we got to throw our thank yous to Harley Hotchkiss, who's in the crowd today. And he's, just to date, it's over $13,000 that he's brought in for us or for this project. And I would estimate that it is over $26,000 worth of material in total if we put everything that he's brought to us. So, huge thank you.
Awesome.
And as always, thank you guys.
Kyle, that was just at the beginning, starting this year, right? I mean, this is the beginning of the school year?
How many weeks have we been in school? 8 or 9?
Yeah. 6.
Yeah, and this is based on a proposal that they brought last spring and that the school board backed kind of their and invested in our staff and really is coming to fruition. So thank you.
Yeah, really cool job. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So you guys were the first plaque that we made out of material.
Awesome.
Oh, Harley got the second. But now we'll continue to work with UW Stevens Point, and we're trying to generate the ideas. That's cool.
Really cool.
So
Yeah.
he's also got cool things to do. So.
Well, that four-wheeler sitting on back, I'm trying to convince him to move the mill with that every day instead of this inside.
Well, that's what I was seeing, the truck. So you move it around with your truck to,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we can store all the tools in the back.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to find a way that's slow enough the students can move it and park it themselves, but we can still trust them to go slow enough.
Yep. Well, I'll see what we can figure out. Well, that's pretty amazing. That's
really cool.
very unexpected. That's pretty cool to hear and see.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Amazing.
Move to the superintendent update. You couldn't ask for a better beginning to the year, but also to a school board meeting. If anything shows the embodiment of what Prescott Public Schools' mission and vision is, it was here tonight. From the arts to the athletics, and later tonight you'll hear a presentation on our academics. Since June 2024, our administrative team took a retreat. We spent 2 days to kind of unpack last year and then to challenge each other about how we would engage both our staff in every department, our licensed staff, our hourly staff, bus, food service, custodians, and then also to challenge them about how we could provide the support and work with the school board to make sure that the resources and support were there for them to execute what we're asking them to do more with less, continue to excel, and not to back down. And I think the girls' golf team stepping up to Division I, not backing down and being the top public school has been amazing. Last night I participated in a community group up at the American Legion in St. Croix Falls. Professor Bill Doherty, emeritus from the University of Minnesota, runs a group called Better Angels. And it was sponsored by Main Street Voices. It's a group that is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that works nationally to bring the Sharks and the Jets together. It's an opportunity where red and blue can get into a room and be able to identify what are shared values, what is a vision, what does a community want, and that I thought was very timely for what we'll be talking about tonight, which are two budgets that are contingent ultimately on a choice that our community will have. And that is, what is the vision and what are the values that our community sees a public school playing for its community. And I hope that as we go through and show both visually in the displays, academically, on the theater, and then in the field of activities and extracurricular, you can see the benefits and the purpose of how we support our community and how we support our youth, future leaders. I do want to also just thank the school board members who have been going out with me and also for intergovernmental partnerships. So in June 2024, a lot of the discussions that the administrative team talked about have occurred. And what I often talk about is once the curtain goes up late August, it's really hard to make course corrections because we've already identified the North Star, how we're going to navigate and what we're going to hit. But making sure that we invited our parents back into the schools by having an open house at Malone, being able to invite your parents to lunch, required our food service and our custodians to participate and engage. We worked with a business partnership to make sure that we had more tables, to make sure that when families were there, they had a place to sit. It was a remarkable and very lively engagement, and I am so appreciative of the work that our administrative team has done and in the partnership with all staff within the Prescott Public Schools. Finally, I did want to acknowledge that it is School Board Appreciation Week, and on behalf of the administrative team, the parent groups, and the district office, I present you with this card. As I go up to CISA 11, and I know that Vicki is your school board rep, she will often hear stories of how districts function and how school boards function, and I can say as a superintendent, this district, this community is very blessed for the leadership and engagement and trust that you put into your employees each and every day, and are always looking for ways to support support them. And that is not the case in every district. And for that, as a superintendent, on behalf of the staff, the 200+ staff within this district, thank you very much.
It's really nice.
Somebody must have known that we were going to have a student report, and Katie Hooper was designated homecoming queen. And so we did have a prop, and I've asked our school board member, who is second in line to wear the tiara, to recognize Katie in her absence. But also I wanted to appreciate our student council. One of them was on the girls' golf team, but also Katie, who is your student rep, about their willingness to step up and submit it to the board a resolution. On behalf of the students, they are basically, be it resolved that the Prescott High School Student Council will participate in activities outside of school hours, supporting the upcoming recurring levy referendum for $1.2 million on November 5th, 2024. Be it further resolved, the Prescott Student Council will wear T-shirts and engage in other activities for purposes of supporting the upcoming operating levy. It was approved on the 11th day of October and signed by their student council reps. I think there's a lot that can be learned from the students that we work with. I've been very impressed by their engagement and positive actions, and I can't thank them enough for sometimes showing the way for adults as well. With that, I conclude, and I will turn it over to President Matzik.
All right, thanks, Rick. I'm going to move on to school business here. Our first item is consent agenda. In the consent, we have the September 18th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes, finance report, personnel report for non-licensed staff, acceptance of the GASB 75 report, approve the ECCP and start college now for fall 2024, and Neola School Board Policy 8310 public records. That is in the consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody on the board would like to have pulled out? No?
No.
Okay. All right, with that, I will adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections?
No.
No objections. The consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. And we'll move on to business. We got, let me get back here. Okay. Consider personnel reports for licensed staff, new hires, Rick.
Yes, proud to announce that if you approve, we have a new district nurse, Amy Kraus, who would begin on Monday, October 21st. And you had a copy of her resume. We believe that she was the best candidate and a great fit, and believe it or not, a former Prescott High School graduate.
Board, any comments or questions here? Anybody?
No, I'm so glad we found someone so quickly.
Yes.
Actually, that's pretty amazing. So yeah, happy to have her back.
All right, we'll take a motion.
I move to approve the personnel report for the licensed staff listed above.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item C, overnight trip to New York for choir.
And I'll have, is it going to be Matt or Josh?
We could have Matt come up here.
I don't think it. I think he's defaulting to you.
Good evening again. I'll keep this one shorter. So our similar to other trips that we've arranged through the high school, one of the things that we firmly believe, and we have a number of staff who are aspiring to create this, is really connecting students with real-world experiences and doing some experiential learning in their different content areas. So our choir group at the high school is looking to organize a trip during spring break this year to New York City around music appreciation, specific to choral music, but also just in general music appreciation, the ability to go see some sights in New York City, but at the same time see some Broadway shows, specifically musicals. It would be facilitated by the same travel company that does the musical trips every other 2 years. So we go to Las Vegas. And so we have a partnership with them that's been established over the past 6 years, providing travel and insurance to our students. So this is the one-pager that shows you kind of where we're at in terms of pricing, insurance, and the planned activities. And this would be facilitated by Ms. Camrath out of our 6 through 12 choral department.
Pat, any questions here?
Not right now. I'm looking. No, not right now.
Okay. Tanya?
No questions.
Vicki?
I don't think so.
Okay, Helen?
No.
This is the first one, right?
This is the first.
To this place.
To this
New York,
location.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And the students fundraise for?
Yeah, the expenses are all paid for by the students, so they can fundraise, or their families can pay outright. They pay the district, and the district then uses the fees that are collected to pay the travel company.
I guess one of my questions, do we have an idea of how many students are
Right now,
the interest
Yep.
in this?
Right now, we have 15 students who are fully committed that if this is approved tonight, are ready to go and begin payments, with another 3 that are fence sitters.
Okay.
I guess I do have one thing. So I know that we've went to other places before, but is this trip going to stay around for like next year, like the previous year? So like there's more time to fundraise for these kids? Because
Yep.
that would be a big...
Yeah, I think that's the goal. Not to oversaturate the market. If you think about what we provide a Disney trip every 4 years.
Sure.
We provide a Europe trip every 2 years. We provide a Spanish trip every 2 years, a Las Vegas trip every 2 years, and now this trip every 2 years. And yet we consistently have 15 to, in the case of Europe, 40 to 60 students who are interested in going. So the goal is to continue to build that repertoire, but to give more time in the future for those, for the opportunity to raise money.
Awesome.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
If there's no other dialogue here, we can take a motion.
I move to approve the overnight trip to New York for the high school choir during spring break 2025.
I'll second.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Next item is consider adopting resolution authorizing a taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note.
It's a mouthful. I'm going to have our finance coordinator, Kara Klatt, come up. She has a busy night. She'll be coming with me over the next 3 business items. So that there's no surprises, this is an annual ask of the board. It really provides a safety net for us. It is becoming more and more precarious, both with regards to some of the factors that we'll talk about as we go through the 2 budgets, and we've been talking about as we prepare the 2 budgets, some of the factors that go into how schools are funded. Understand that up to this point, as you look at our board reports and our financials, we have received less than 2% of our revenue from state and local resources, yet we are already finished with our first quarter of our financial fiscal year. That means that we've been paying for utilities, we've been paying for fuel, we've been paying salaries, and that is why you need a cash flow. Over the last 8 years, we have not had to touch a line of credit. That was something that was a very consistent, almost 20-year history within the Prescott Public Schools. By not having to use the line of credit, it saves taxpayers money. We are not paying and having to use Fund $10 to pay interest just to meet payroll. So I wanted to just give a shout out to the finance department across the years. also the school board for its astute attention to budgets and making sure that they make fiscally responsible and conservative decisions so that we can avoid that. It is part of your policy with regards to your fund balance that you maintain a fund balance so that you don't take and need to have short-term borrowing. So with that, I'll turn over to more of the pragmatics. The paperwork has arrived, and if you could just describe the terms, the timeline, and whose signatures are necessary at the end.
Yeah, so that's part of the board packet for tonight, and the terms, it's technically 1 year term for $1 million. Interest rate is 4.5%, and the hope is that it will not be needed again, but it is essential to back us up in case we need to take a loan from that for cash flow. As we watch the past couple of years with the budget and deficits that have come through, it may be more likely, or more important, I should say, to have that as a protection for the district.
Helen, do you have any questions?
No, this is a pretty standard. Most districts do this. So
Vicki?
No questions.
Tanya?
No questions.
Pat?
No questions.
Just curious, last year, I don't know if you remember, what was the interest rate last year? I thought it was a lot cheaper than that. 4.5% this year is what their interest rate
I
is?
thought it was 3.5.
Okay.
But I would have to go back and look and confirm.
Yeah, okay. But we haven't had to touch this for 8 years. Are we anticipating dipping into this at this point, Rick, or are we thinking
Probably depends on
It'll depend on November 5th.
Okay. All right. Stupid question. All right.
No, I think it's an important point that our community understands.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Kara. No other questions here. We can entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing opening the line of credit with First National Bank of River Falls not to exceed $1 million.
I'll second.
All right, that's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, and we're on to item E, board adoption of the fiscal year 2025 levy and budgets.
So for those that are here, thank you. And for people that are out in the community, we are hopeful that as we go through tonight, Kara Klatt and myself will be sharing 2 budgets. This is unprecedented for Prescott Public Schools. It is based on a statute that if you are going for an operating levy, you must approve at the board level 2 different budgets with the different levies that are associated. First, you have to start with our balanced budget that would be based on the revenue that is coming in and all of the data elements that were finalized. And when did the final data point and equalization aid come in?
8 a.m. yesterday.
Okay. So it's been an incredible feat, both for somebody that's joining a finance department. We knew when we hired Kara that she had the competencies and database skills to do it, but to throw her into doing 2 budgets at the same time was probably a push for anybody. Also, I know on a personal note that there have been challenges, and that you've been able to be here tonight means a lot, and your loyalty to that is much appreciated. The reason it's unprecedented is, as I was stating, is we're going to go through Budget 1 and then Budget 2. It almost sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, but it is important that Budget 1 is contingent on all the changes, the challenges, and the choices that we've had to make as a board since April 2nd. There have been multiple informational meetings, open sessions, and a website that is being updated on a regular basis. There have been opportunities to partner with our city councils and in the townships, and we appreciate Diamond Bluff, Clifton, the Chamber of Commerce. Later this week, we'll be presenting to Prescott Community Club, and I know that we also were down in Diamond Bluff, and obviously on Monday at Prescott Council. We did play the video, so there is a video on our website to understand, and we're not going to reiterate how schools are funded, but there is obviously a challenge, and we know that the challenge is that there's an educational formula that was established in 1993, and Prescott was basically put at a disadvantage back in 1993, and that formula has never changed. If, like this year, we are receiving $325 additional dollars per pupil, that is the same for everybody in the state. And if you start 50 yards behind everybody, you will then continue to be 50 yards behind somebody. And so we're going to go through. I will ask the board, as you know, we had a presentation of the preliminary budget September 16th, I think, and then on the 25th we had the annual meeting. At the annual meeting, we specifically shared with everybody here and also out to the community is that you know, because you've been working on boards, that everything that we say at that time is an estimate. It's an estimate based on the information that we had at the time. And the last and the most important piece of the puzzle is equalization aid. That's the amount of aid coming from the state, and it's two buckets. It's a teeter-totter. How much money is coming from the state? How much money is going to come from local taxpayers? And it goes up and down based on the property value, property wealth that's equalized across 421 districts. Just for a matter of fact, we had an estimate in July. We were building that estimate based on July. The equalization aid, did it go up or down based on the estimate?
Down.
And how much did it go down?
Approximately $63,000.
Okay, so we are receiving $63,000 less from the state bucket. Doesn't mean we're receiving $63,000 less. It just means that it has to be picked up by the local community. So that'll be one of the changes. In addition, another data element that came in was that, as you know, there is a voucher system. It is primarily for Milwaukee, Madison, and Racine, as well as students that take and meet special financial qualifications to enroll in private schools. We historically have been asked, has it impacted Prescott Public Schools? And the answer has been, it's been very minor. We received information, and again, it's data that we don't have. We know how many students, butts and seats, we know who is in our rooms, and we know where they are. What we don't know is open enrollment. Kids that go out, did they really end up at the district that they stated? Some families choose homeschool, and then some students follow up on the voucher. For the first time, Prescott's value has tripled with regards to the amount of money that are going to vouchers, and we were notified yesterday that how much money is going to vouchers?
Almost $54,000.
Okay.
Versus $20,000.
So $54,000. The importance of that is that education has been funded as one bucket, but all of the money is then spent within public schools, vouchers, the Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, and also for private schools. So that money comes off the top. In addition, that money that is picked up by, we do not get any information about whether or not it's one, multiple families or children. All we know is that $54,000 needs to be levied by the district to pay that $55,000. So that's a swing of $100,000 just over the last month, basically, that we were unaware of.
And when you say levied, it means it's coming from taxpayer dollars.
Correct. Local.
Local.
Yep.
Yep.
So those are some things, Terry, that we would encourage and like attention, and that we have somebody's ear in the room. We appreciate it because we have not had that ear in the room. What I would say is that, as I've stated often and from my graduate work, is that budgets are really values that are expressed by dollar signs. And ultimately, the community is going to have a choice, and we'll talk about the financial impact that our school board is asking our community to invest in its staff, number one priority. Number two, into our programs that impact students. 3, into the resources and training for our staff, and then also into the overall operations of our facilities. So those values have been stated and articulated by the school board. It is what is on the ballot, and then that is what we are held accountable, Kara and myself, as we are annually audited with regards to that the language on a ballot matches where that money goes. So I'll start to talk about, first and foremost, based on the video. The video talks and is created by the Wisconsin Business Organization. That's business organization offices has put together a 3-minute, 30-second video. It is playing currently on public television within the community and was also shared at the City Council on Monday when Mike Matzik and I presented. Schools are funded on enrollment. When we talked about a levy cap in 1993, it was based on per pupil funding for the students that come through our door. Oftentimes people ask, well, how many students do you have? And that is important. But before I get there, what has really been eye-opening as we talk to the community is every district is funded differently with regards to the students that come through our doors. In fact, Prescott Public Schools is considered a low-revenue district. We are funded currently $74 more than the lowest funded schools in the district per pupil. You can see...
Lowest districts in the state.
In the state, yep. Then if you look at Middle Border, that includes Amory, Somerset, Altoona, and St. Croix Central, they are all receiving more dollars per student that comes into their school, and yet they're asked to get their students to the same standards as we are. And we don't back down, and later you'll see Michael Kozmowski share with you how we're performing. But even a neighboring district is receiving $1,200 on average and $50 more per pupil. And I doubt that the cost of living or the ability to run those facilities are that much dramatically different. And yet that is what the finance rules are that we have been unable to change in over 30 years. If we were funded similarly to our neighbor, we would be receiving $1.6 million more, and highly unlikely that we'd have to ask our community for more money. But this is what's really important, is that when people ask us about enrollment, there are 3 pictures that we have to keep in mind. The first 2 are the most important. The last is how we're funded, but it's a lagging indicator. And we know in business that if you're following a lagging indicator, you will be caught flat-footed. We are funded based on enrollment that includes our 4K students as well as summer session programming. We're return to learn days where our staff has stepped up and part of their contract are dedicated to those days in August. We have added 3 additional days and are bringing in additional enrollment that then is ultimately funded. However, you can see the trend since 2012 to 2025, this school year, has been decreasing, and that trend line is down. And what that means is that we have fewer students coming through the door. We are at the low end of how we're funded, and so we have declining and revenue that is coming in, even with the 325 step up. Also understand that 4K students, we are not being compensated like a full-time student, right? They do not receive the $11,399. They get 6/10 of that because they are partial. And then summer school enrollment, we receive 40% of their enrollment. The second one is head count, and it does include 4K, and this is what the school board is often faced with, and then the administrative team and our staff as we look at how do we make sure that our specialists and class sizes stay within your margins. And what we do know is that this year, On October 11th, we received what our overall enrollment is based on the reconciliation of open enrollment, 4K, and the information that the district office reports based on partnership with our front offices. Our enrollment has dropped to 1216. That is the lowest it's been in over a decade. And that is continuing to put a huge press both on our finances, but also requiring adjustments with regards to how we have had to consolidate sections, K-5, and also in some of our specialists. When you look at funding, the arc is a little bit less because it averages the last 3 years. And so over time, you can see the difference between, in 2016, we opened this high school, and our enrollment increased to 1378 and stayed above the trend line for 4 years. But you can see it's now below the trend line for 2023, 2023-24, and 24-25. This means that we had built our estimates on 1,300 students starting in July, and now it is a 3-year average is at 1,290. So we have 10 fewer students than we reported last board meeting and at the annual meeting. So you have $100,000 of additional costs based on the equalization, and now we have another 100,000 plus because of declining enrollment. But you can see the challenge for us is that we will show next year another decrease in enrollment because we'll graduate a class with over 100 students and we'll replace that with a class of high 90s. The enrollments at 4K coming in are also kind of at the 77 to 85 range. So that drop will then be averaged in. Know that there is at the first year, they have a safe harbor and they provide a safety net. But after that safety net is gone, trying to regain enrollment, we know, based on the work that Vicki has done. Do you want to just quickly give us an update with regards to birth rates in Wisconsin from your work at CISA?
It was interesting. Well, the birth rates are down everywhere, and the unfortunate part with Wisconsin, as I learned, is the fastest growing population in the state of Wisconsin is retirees. So that's not going to help increase the student population. People are moving back to, be comfortable back where they were raised, be around grandkids and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's not just our district, it's the entire state who's seen this declining enrollment, and that would, I guess, be up to the state to figure out how to get young families back to this area. But right now, the trend is not subsiding.
And so Wisconsin is one of the lowest birth rates in the nation, and western Wisconsin trails the rest of the state. So our opportunity to see replacement is not in the near future. If the economy changes for the positive and there's new building, that might be, but understand that families no longer are sizes of 9, but they're mostly 2 or less. And so those are some of the challenges that we'll be talking about later tonight, about what is at risk if the operating levy is not supported, because it's based on how we're funded, but also the number of students that are in our classes, and that has decreased. So again, go ahead.
Before we move on, just because I know the next part is kind of moving a little bit, I was wondering, I know low birth rate has had a lot to do with our declining enrollment as well as the economy. I know we have housing developments that were like really in progress, and there's a lot of pause there with building and all that kind of stuff. But I was also curious, our open enrollment numbers. Did we have a huge jump? Are we pretty comparable? Like in the past, we've been within a handful, kind of comparatively speaking, but did we see a big change in that in the last year or two?
Yeah, so what Tanya's asking about is Opal that Jackie reports. I think we had 85 students out and 35 students in. So it's that differential.
About 50-ish.
Yeah. And that difference, I don't think it's not growing, but it's been pretty consistent.
Yeah, just a handful of kids here either way each year. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this was important because I wanted to just remind people is that when we talk about levy caps, it's based on enrollment. It's based on that you get per pupil aid, and per pupil aid differs within the middle border and within our neighborhood. And we see it declining, and we're at the low end on revenue. And so those are the basically headwinds that this board has had to be challenged with. And it goes back to how does a community come together and articulate its values on the role that the public schools face? And so with that, I'm going to transition now to Kara Klatt to walk you through Budget 1 and Budget 2. And she'll explain what the differences are since September 25th. And I would also ask each of the board members, if you could, feel free to interject questions to accent any points that are changed since August. So, Budget 1.
So for Budget 1, this is based on unsupported operating levy. And so the total tax levy for Budget 1 would be $11,088,711. The revenue limit would be, you see there's $6,234,415. Community service would remain the same at $225,000. And voter approved debt, we're looking at taking into account that if that levy is not supported, we would need to likely look at doing some defeasance of debt. And so that's what the $4.2 million represents. That would in fact save the taxpayers some money. And also the revenue limit, I should specify too, that number has changed since the last presentation. And that was due to that general aid release that came out yesterday with the reduction. So that basically that's a $100,000 reduction there too.
And could you just remind people, the community service, what departments that encompasses?
So that's recreation and education for the community.
So basically, the total levy is based on these three combinations, and then this is a slide that was presented at the annual meeting and also at the board meeting with the updates based on the factors that we talked about. Do you want to just kind of walk through the 5 components that make up the 11 million verified?
So you have the operation fund, so that's $6,234,415, and property chargebacks are 0. Debt fund 38, we have that as $388,383. That has not changed. And the debt service fund 39, that's the one that we have increased based on looking at having to possibly do defeasance. And community service fund, the 80s is still $225,000.
And just a reminder, defeasance is something that the school board has used to be proactive. It's like prepaying your mortgage. The sooner you pay down the principal, the interest drops, and you ultimately save taxpayers money. You've used that recently, 2 years ago, to pay off a significant bond, and we also used it to help refinance. So it's an opportunity for the board to try to manage the mill rate without it having a whiplash effect. It keeps the ability for us to prepay some of the debt that we know continues to climb based on some of the infrastructure and building of the high school in 2016. So, any questions that you have with regards to how this is unique or factors that's changed since September, the annual meeting, and budget 1?
Any questions on here, you guys?
No questions.
No?
I don't have
Do you guys have any questions?
Questions?
Just so clarification then, so we have to increase what we're asking as far as what the revenue, the limit, the total tax levy that we're asking for has gone up because we've got that reduction coming from the state, so that has to go on to our levy, so that's where that difference is coming in. And that's at 100,000 basically that we discussed as far as the 63,000 less from the state and then the increase of vouchers, that's where that 100,000 is coming into play, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And a little bit more was added to the defeasance above
Okay.
what we had earlier to make it more manageable and something that would have a sizable bite into our current interest and principal.
Okay.
Okay. Budget 2, what is unique about this, again, is that it's specific and it's contingent. It's contingent if November 5th is supported by the community. And still the same buckets, but some of the numbers are different in those buckets, and you want to just go left to right and update us?
So the total would be $11,488,711 with the approved levy. The revenue limit would increase by $1.2 million. So you can see the increase there. If you reflect back on the prior screen, that would be exactly 1.2 million. And then community service remains the same at $225,000. The voter-approved debt is in the guidelines and the, what is approved currently is 3.4 million that you see there. And that is what we would pay for that approved debt. We would not increase that and follow through with the defeasance, as the mill rate would still remain stable. So that the goal is mill rate stable in coming years in the future, so that essentially, you know, as we wait and see what happens, you know, with the state and all these other factors and declining enrollment, we would be able to determine nothing dropping or increasing too much.
Kara, can I
So
just...
to stabilize a little.
Okay.
I just want to so the mill rate is really kind of how the tax levy impacts our community and taxpayers. And so keeping that stable for us is helping our taxpayers keep kind of that stable pay-in or mill rate, or how much they pay per month and stuff like that. So
We are looking at is basically the school-based.
Yeah. Yep. And when we talk about like that whiplash kind of thing, it's because like we know taxpayers, we all have budgets, we all run households and stuff like that, is that when every year, if we're dropping that down or raising that up, it's really hard for families to budget and do all that stuff. So we try to keep it as stable as we can for our taxpayers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the breakdown here then is the operation fund was $7,434,415. Chargebacks again remain zero. Debt fund 38 again remains the same number.
And can you remind, Fund 38 is?
Fund 30. Fund 38, that's a non-referendum debt fund, and the other 39 is a referendum debt service.
Right, the voter approved, and just the non-referendum debt is the energy efficiency, right? And so wanted to kind of just remind people that there was some energy efficiency work to mitigate some of the costs that the board was doing, and so we just wanted to make sure that we're identifying that it's required to be paid off, but it's broken out that way.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that community service fund remains $225,000.
This slide is important because...
Talk about this.
We'll talk about it together. All right, so one of the hardest things is, obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. I talk about it as, the only way I can think about it when I did a lot of testing is it was the logistics of throwing a wedding, because you had to have everything, the right test with the right kid at the right table, and that was the only way I could survive doing those tasks. When you're looking at a budget, it is like trying to cook. There's a lot of ingredients that go into it. A lot of the ingredients come at different times, and over the last week, October 11th, we received our numbers that were reconciled statewide with enrollment. We then received computer aid. We received property, some kind of property, now I'm forgetting what that was, but we also then received equalization aid and then the vouchers 12 hours ago. Chargebacks. Basically the levy and how you calculate mill rate, you'll never see it on your tax bill, but it's the way to equalize like a ruler, making sure that we understand inches, yards, feet, or Celsius and Fahrenheit. We do not have assessed values. The school district does not control the assessed values. The school district does not control when a municipality does their assessments and then what formulas it uses for increasing based on inflation. We do know, and we are quite aware, that some Prescott community in particular had not been reassessed since 2017. And you know that with inflation, we heard some individuals speak to us on Monday night. One of the interesting takeaways, though, is we listened to an individual share that their assessed value on their house had gone up 45%. But Mike, do you remember when he shared, he did look at, remember, the property tax includes county, the municipality, it includes CVTC, it includes the county jail, and it includes the school portion. And his comment was, what happened to his property taxes on the school portion, even with the assessed value going up 45%?
They went down, right? I think is that what he said? Yeah, on his property tax bill, yes.
So
last year.
This is an estimate trying to equalize. Everybody's, depending on which part of the 5 municipalities, townships you live in, we don't have that information, but school systems and counties use equalized value. People have also asked, why is the overall mill rate or the amount of tax impact based on this similar ask of 1.2 million, why does it have less of a financial impact on our budgets? And it is about the middle line that says equalized property value. A year ago, the combined wealth of our 5 municipalities was $1.3 billion. You can see now that on average across the 5 municipalities, the overall property values have increased about 10%. That added $100 million to the overall property values within our district. The $11,488,000 levy for budget 2 that we just described is then divided by the equalized value, and that creates the mill rate. And it is different based on the information that was finalized 12 hours ago. We had shared that it was an increase of $4, and you see now that it is an increase of $6.06. So that is ultimately the final tale based on the information that we have. We did want to share that historically across time, and Karen, was there anything else you wanted to add on that? Okay.
So it's, just to clarify, I think $6.60.
Correct.
Yeah.
You said 6. That's
okay. Yeah, $6.60. Thank you. This is a picture of 2015 to now. Goes back to Tanya's point about mill rates. As a district and as a school board, you have seen the mill rate decline significantly over the last decade. Last year, the mill rate was 7.7, meaning people were paying $7.70 per thousand. You can see that by supporting the 1.2 million, It would increase the mill rate, but well below historical rates. And that's why I go back to what is the mission and vision, and how does the values of our community see the role of public schools, and is it worth that investment, given that it has not come from the state, and we waited 30 years. And I think it's unfortunate, but our students and our staff shouldn't be held accountable and held back because of the lack of support from Madison. This is how the tax table for people to identify how that would play out. For a $100,000 house, it would add $6.60 to their annual budget. Per month, that's about 55 cents. A $300,000 house, it's just below $20, $1.65 per month. And a $500,000 house, it would be $33 per year, or $2.75.70. This is the difference in the tax bill from last year, 23-24, which was at 7.770, compared to this year at 7.766. Last, before we'll entertain any questions, is that this is pictorially. If you go back, how the blue line shows the mill rate at Prescott Public Schools in comparison to the red line, which is the mill rate for the state average. You can see that the mill rate for Prescott Public Schools was higher than the state average, but over time, you can see that that gap continues to narrow each and every year. And last year, we don't have this year's statewide because every board is doing what you're doing tonight. But you can see last year, we were closing and creating almost the portion of your tax, property tax, compared to the state for Prescott Public Schools is closing in on being very normative for the state. Obviously, with the support here, it goes up a tick, but you can see that it likely would be very close to the state average. With that, Kara and I are happy to answer any questions that you have with regards to Budget 1, which is, Kara, Budget 1, is it balanced?
Yes.
All right, so last year we were here and we presented you a budget that started 1.2 million in the red, and you agreed to use fund balance to give us time to make course corrections. Our staff in every department and throughout this organization found cost cutting, and we were able to cut over $600,000 within the academic year. And unfortunately, without the support, we then this summer had to make additional reductions. That is why ultimately the school board is back here with the Budget 2, asking the community to invest to ensure that we're able to protect the future and provide the programming, the academics, and the outcomes that they're accustomed to Prescott excelling.
I'm going to start over here. Tanya, do you have any questions or comments on any of the slides?
I don't really have any questions about the budgets, no.
Any comments or anything in general that?
Well, I just, I continue to see that 1.2 number there. That's a number that we have been talking about and dealing with for a couple years. Well, gosh, 3-ish years at this point that we've known has been kind of looming. Maybe it's been closer to 2. When you have Budget 2, where that 1.2 is built into it, we tried so hard and looked at so many different ways. And when I say we tried hard, Kara, I know you tried really hard and Rick tried really hard to have that be not a $1.2 million kind of deficit that we were playing with, closer to, we were hoping like a $1 million, a $900,000, whatever, and we just could not get there. And so we did many exercises, and you guys probably did far more than us, where we looked at how long can we operate this budget without that $1.2 million, even knowing that we just did a $1.2 million cut, essentially even a little bit more. I think we ended up cutting out of our budget last year for this current year. And it just carries us into, I think it's year 2, and we're starting to have to dip right back into our fund balance and operate into a deficit. And so that 1.2 was the only number, the smallest number we could come up with that would get us past two biennials of the state's budget process. That would hopefully buy us some time to make some decisions about what we're going to do, with the assumption that why would we get a state increase? We haven't in years. And so it's really unfortunate that we're back here looking at those two, but that 1.2 is just that common denominator I keep seeing across every budget for years and years. So I guess those are my comments there. No questions.
Pat? I know we're going to be talking more about this in the later part of the agenda, but I would echo what Tanya said. We tried very hard to get this below 1.2. 1.2 is where it makes sense. 1.2 puts and we've already talked about it a number of times, our fund balance at that spot that is required to not have to short-term lend or borrow, and that we can make sure that we invest in the things that are already laid out here, on the graph. It gave us an opportunity to double down on and clarify what we were going to invest in. I know we'll talk more about that. But just as Tanya said, it gets us those 2 legislative cycles out. It gives us an opportunity for some stabilization while we continue to execute the Vision 2035 long-range planning. That is important work that the board needs to get to.
Pat, I just wanted you brought up 2035 planning, and that is something that I can't remember how long ago we began planning that, but that was probably 3-4 years ago, would you say, Rick?
To start to articulate it, right? And last fall, our staff and students began the process.
Yep.
And we had to put it on ice until we could get better situated and avoid just survival mode.
One of the things, because we have, as a board, gone out to 10-ish, maybe 15-ish kind of groups and community events just to talk with people, and that's something that comes back quite often is that 2035 plan, and really it's been centered around having 3 buildings or 4 buildings. And so that's something that we are very prepared to have conversations about. We, I think, as a board, recognize that we don't necessarily, especially declining enrollment, need the same amount of space that we needed before. And so in order for us to go down to a 3-building district, that takes time and preparation, and we can't just bring that on our staff and our students and flip that switch. And so it also buys us time to do that planning, which is more of that long-term savings piece. So you brought that up. I just want to pick in one other question I guess I have, and for me it's just squaring my thinking. Am I accurate that about 80% of our budget is to personnel?
That is it.
Okay, pretty.
83.
Even a little higher.
Yep. Oh, wow.
And so when you think of a budget like that, and you think about 83% of our whole budget is going to our staff, you can see where it gets very difficult to make cuts. And if we want to give raises for our teachers, which we do, we can't take that back. No. I mean, that builds into our budget and is continuous. So that's all. Now for real, that's all.
Yeah, I think we can't cut. We cut, we start losing staff. There's no more, how many more programs, what activities, what classes, all of that. It's, when you've got that much going to personnel, it's people you start losing. We've already lost a number of good people. It was hard on administration to bring those cuts to us and ask us, or I guess tell us, this is what we can do without. And we need that time to plan. We've been working on plans on what we were hoping we could do with a district before the maintenance referendum. We had some ideas kind of floating around, and we're getting kind of some plans going, and then we needed maintenance referendums. We got through that. everything was looking okay, and then we just didn't get from the state the money we were hoping to get from the state, so we're back at this again. So it makes any sort of planning really difficult, and what we don't want to have is any knee-jerk reactions to not getting such a minimal amount that we're asking for from the taxpayers. We are a very property wealthy area. That certainly comes with the proximity to the Twin Cities. We just know that we're going to have that. So I don't, unless the formula changes, we're always going to be at that weird percentage of more of it really coming from our local taxpayers. So this is a small amount. We're doing our very best to keep that mill rate as low as possible for our taxpayers, and we need to do some planning, and this gives us that ability to focus on that planning. Like I said, it's just been interrupted the last 5 years from trying to get all the other stuff done first. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't know.
Yeah, I piggyback a lot of what you said, but we've been talking about cutting, but there's so much that we haven't been able to cut because it's been on the backs of the teachers. They're doing more with way less now, and we know that. And I can speak from personal experience. I'm a teacher. It's hard to keep doing that every day when you don't feel supported with your salary. That's tough. And so we do want to pay our teachers what they're worth because they give our students everything they have every single day. And programs that could have been cut and could have went away, they volunteered or they stepped up and took that initiative to keep those. So yeah, there are a lot of cuts that were really tough, but a lot of the things that makes our district great are still there because of what our teachers are doing. So it sucks that we have to still talk about the state not pulling their weight, especially when they have a lot to say about what actually happens in our buildings and with what we do as teachers and what the district does. So it's time for them to step up and start paying for that as well. And hopefully that can get fixed. But right now, in order to give us the time, we need to have the conversations that we will be having and that we do have on a regular basis. This summer, we've been together a lot. We need the community to step up, and I believe they will.
All right, I'm gonna save my comments. I think I know we're gonna cover it in the info and discussion. The budgets look cut and dry to me. I think if anybody else has any comments or questions on the budget, or if we just want to take a motion and get this one done, and we'll move on to info and discussion.
I move to approve the adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 annual budget as presented with an overall local levy of $11,488,711 with the assumption of a supported $1.2 million operating levy by our community, or a local levy of $11,088,711 if the $1.2 million operating levy is not supported.
I second.
Okay. We don't. Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of it. We're good with that. I think we're good with that. That's a motion, right?
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. All right. Let's move on to info and discussion.
All right, Carrie, you get a 5-minute break.
Thanks, Kara.
You get to come back, maybe. I have the pleasure of having Michael Kosmowski, our Director of Teaching and Learning, but also intermediate school principal, who is coming from parent-teacher conferences and is going to update you with regards to the overall outcomes of our test scores from last year.
Can you go out and go back in? That's what's catching it.
It's freaking amazing.
No. I think the slide show itself, maybe.
There we go.
There we go. All right, well, thank you, board, for having me again. Today, I get the pleasure of showing you some data that was released last week from the state. So the state has released all the spring 2024 assessment data for all of the school districts. Again, last month I presented and talked about the change in our cut scores in that process of the forward exam and then also the pre-ACT and ACT up at the high school. So comparison from last year, it's not apples to apples, but we can look at sort of what's the trend of some of our cohorts, how much did we gain versus the cohort of the state, which kind of shows you the change in those scores. One of the things that we do every year is we look at our middle board conference, and now we have Altoona in our middle board conference, and then our neighboring districts, and how did they score as well, how do we compare. So we'll start with ELA. And just like in years previous, if you see yellow, those are districts that scored lower than us. If you see baby blue, those are the districts that scored higher, and then green would have scored the same score as we have. So on the left-hand side, you can see we have the Wisconsin Forward Exam. This is given in grades 3 through 8. A little bit different about the ELA exam in Wisconsin is that it does include writing. It's not just a reading test. It also includes conventions and things of that nature. All that gets put together into an English language arts score. You can see their alphabetical order down the side, starting with Altoona. You'll see neighboring districts are in blue, so Hudson, New Richmond, River Falls, just our neighboring districts that we compare to, and then two districts that are demographically very similar in western Wisconsin, Bloomer and GET. Oftentimes we hear those school districts when we're heading into sports postseason. So forward exam is on the left-hand side there. As you can see in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. There isn't a single district around us or in our conference or that is similar to us that scored at a higher rate than what we did last year. If we look up at the high school, you can see there's more blue. This cohort of students that we have, my son actually is in that cohort. This cohort we have been watching for a long time, and we've been assisting them. This is the lowest cohort in ELA that we've ever had. I went and looked up the number today, and they were only 35% proficient in third grade. They're up to 51% proficient now on that pre-ACT, which is an indicator of the ACT score. So that's where we're kind of at. Just a little highlight, grade 4 to grade 5 cohort. In 2023, when they were in grade 4, there were six districts that were scoring higher. Now in grade 5, there's no districts that's scoring higher. Our students gained, that particular cohort gained 24 percentile in meeting and exceeding expectations, while the state average was only 8. So we more than covered that gap by 3 times.
Wow.
So that was a great gain for us from grades 4 to 5 with our kiddos. When you do the math, there's 126 squares that you're looking at. 106 of them, or 84% of the time, we are scoring in that highest category. It's down just slightly. Last year, 90% of the time, we were scoring higher. Now this year, it's 84% in ELA. Any questions on ELA before I switch over to the math? Okay. In math, sort of the same thing. Again, yellow is lower, baby blue is higher. Obviously, we can see our third grade cohort is a little bit lower in mathematics. But as you look at those percentiles, they're not all that much different. Again, if we look at overall, 84% of the time Prescott is higher, and that is very comparable, 83% when last year we were at 85%. So one box overall difference here. Couple cohorts to highlight though. Grade 4, again, grade 4 to grade 5, we improved 14% while the state improved 6%. So again, we're meeting that and then exceeding. And then our grade 10 and 11 cohorts, grade 10 gained 18% while the state gained 6%, and our grade 11 cohorts gained 12% while the state only gained 6% as well. So again, some of our cohorts had some phenomenal growth, and applaud those students, those teachers, and those parents, because we know it takes the whole village to raise the child and to get there, and a lot of dedicated hard work. So there's a lot to be, a lot of positive here that we're looking at, again, just based solely just on the color of lower than and higher than Prescott. My next slide then, what I did is ELA is on the top, math is on the bottom, and just the middle border conference now. Rank them based on their combined average. And you can see as a district overall in both math and ELA, we are the top. We're the same in both elementary and middle. And in the high school, we're third in ELA and second in mathematics. And mathematics actually was a gain from last year. So some pretty positive things that we have going on in Prescott, again, amid a contentious end of the year when a lot of these assessments were taking place. Any questions?
Helen, do you have any questions or comments here for Michael?
No, I don't. I think the teachers are amazing, and they know what they're doing, and students work really hard, and so the proof is in the pudding. So,
Vicki.
Yeah, I agree with Helen. The teachers have certainly, you guys have had the time to focus in on students and really work with them, and you've got your interventionists, you've got your collaboration time, and it looks like score-wise that stuff is trickling down to students, which is
absolutely
fantastic.
Tanya, anything?
Yeah, one thing that really stands out for me, being on the board for a very long time now, I remember when math was not our strong suit. And so it's really exciting for me to see that we had a focus on math, and now that's one of, I would say, probably our strength, which is really, really cool. And I think that speaks to, of course, our amazing staff, and we often say teachers, it's the specialists, it's the psychologists, the counselors, it's everybody, right, our leadership. So it speaks to that. It also speaks to some of the things that we have been able to prioritize. Interventionalists. I know we've had to do some reductions there, but we also are maintaining some of that as well, because this is what happens. It also, I think, goes to the time that we have for collaboration. The look at how we're changing the way we're teaching. I know you're thinking classroom, our thinking classroom, and so I think it just speaks to all kinds of things, and the leadership behind being able to, from you, Rick, our principals, being able to implement all of these things with fidelity and keep that momentum going. So super impressive. I'm especially impressed with math, knowing 6-7 years ago, and we would have had a lot of other colors on there. So.
Yeah, Pat.
Michael, I like when you highlight how the cohorts improve, right, and how we move. And I know we've had metrics on that before. I don't know if we have that stuff yet, or if you're going to talk about that. But you did. I want to make sure I heard you right. These math scores right here were an improvement actually from last year. Is that right?
Yeah.
At the high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Math improved from the high school. Yes. The two cohorts improved immensely. That 8th to 9th grade cohort was 2%, which for Prescott, that's 2 kiddos, below the state average of growth. So that even that cohort was making a year's growth in a year's time within 2%, within 2 kiddos. But those 9 to 10 and 10 to 11, big jumps for us. Yep.
I guess my only comment would be, it was really cool, the presentation by the tech ed group today. I guess stands out to me as maybe I want to say the right way. We're bringing this stuff here right into the classroom and other areas, including tech ed, and that's awesome, and it's really neat.
Yeah. I think you guys made the time in the comment about math. You're right. A couple of years ago, it didn't look quite like that. But it really has been, part of it's been a curricular adoption of illustrative math, Desmos at the middle school level. At the high school level, we had a new curriculum as well. So we've been building that thinking in along the way. And now just as a district, we're looking K-12 at how do we deepen that thinking. Like we said, we're bringing into other areas, right? The math score isn't just the math teachers. It's all the other areas where we're also doing math.
There's so much math.
And at the elementary, sometimes we do that when we're standing in line for lunch and we're skip counting. Or I should say factors, learning our factors. Dating myself there. All right, so next month I'm going to come to you because the day before the board meeting, our report card becomes public knowledge. So the state now takes all of our scores and they look at our overall achievement, which we see here is pretty positive. They will look at the growth of the cohorts and they will rank us on that. They'll also rank us on the growth of our bottom quartile. So when we talk about, after the pandemic, we expanded interventionists. The board did that. We added interventionists. So we'll see the impact of that. We won't know the impact of the cuts of the interventionists until next year, right? But I think we can kind of predict what's going to happen when you have less support for kiddos. So that's going to come next month. Just a couple things. The report card itself, the purpose of the report card has not changed. It's really for us to look at areas of strength that we want to build upon, but then also areas of need. Because as bright as that was, those colors I showed you, there are still areas of need, and we know that. That data, our data, that's what we spent 2 days with 30 teachers in August looking at. So that data for us isn't anything new. The new part is, how did we do compared to others? That's the new part. What was the state average? We didn't know those, but we knew what our cohorts did. So we've been planning and building goals and already have interventions in place all around that sort of data. So when the report card comes out, again, it's based on points. It's not a percentile. So whatever points you get puts you in one of these 4 categories, or 5 categories. Just a reminder, last year, elementary significantly exceeded. We exceeded both as a district and as a middle school. And I believe the high school met expectations. They're really close to being at the exceeding. We're kind of right on that cutoff. But the purpose has not changed. One thing that has changed, though, is those cut scores. So because the cut scores changed, what the state decided to do this year is to do a scale adjustment. So what they did is they took the scores of our kiddos and they basically applied the old cutoffs to it. And again, those old cutoffs were very much more rigorous than the current cutoffs because they were aligning to NAEP, the national report card. And now we've gone away from that as a state. So they're doing the scale adjustment. And what they're trying to do is they're doing, if your scale adjustment ends up being lower, which I don't know how a district would get lower because, again, it was easier to be meeting expectations now, they're going to hold you harmless. So that's really, and that adjustment does impact everything except for growth. Growth will be the only thing where it's value-added growth. We're comparing kids at one score 1 year, what did they do, and did you beat those odds or did you not? So that really is what's new on the report card. Otherwise, it's all the same categories. We got the same priority areas, achievement, growth, again, that bottom quartile of kiddos, and then our on track to graduation. Right? And our on track to graduation, we know that's going to be impacted. Part of that is our 3rd grade ELA score, our 8th grade math score. I'll go into that. So that's one cohort that weighs heavily on your report card. So those will be coming out next month.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Michael, this is fantastic. And the data the data is really well presented. I think we've seen the colorful graphs, I don't know how many years now in a row, but
But we really like
it's finally
it.
starting to sink in
We
for
love
us, I
it.
think. So thanks for keeping it the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't express how much like this is just great. It's great news, and this is exactly what we're here for. I mean, great teachers, and it's showing in the classrooms, and you guys just do such a fantastic job. I'm blown away by how the numbers are for the scores, and I know it's not all about test scores. It's certainly not. It's a metric we're using to compare against other districts. It's are the kids learning? I think and growing, and you guys just do such a fantastic job. I'm always blown away by
Just
it.
the one part I'll add to that is a kid cannot score well, cannot learn at high levels if they aren't fully supported in everything. Nutrition, transportation, mental health, all of those things. And just kudos to our teachers and our staff that bring that every single day for every single kid.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Well done.
And Michael, do you have one person that also helps in all that data mining?
Yeah, so the day that this came out, Kathy Miller spends a lot of time mining the data with me. So what you saw there was really about 12 hours worth of work put into, Kyle's timing me, he told me I had 5 minutes, and I don't think I can do it in 5. So 12 hours and 12 minutes.
You probably text her about 4 in the morning saying the data came in, and you're like, let's get to work.
Trust me, he does, and he turns it around. We're one of the, as a superintendent, to have this information as quickly as we do. But I thought it was a really nice candle on top of just celebrating School Board Week for all the hours, extra hours that you put in. But it's not only that, it's the support that you have put forward for our instructional staff. If you think about the tough challenges and decisions you had to make about collaboration time, to invest an ability for us to have early release, but to dedicate that time where staff are able to meet by specialists through special education and our counselors to look at the whole student has been invaluable. The work that our teachers do as leaders in curricular and grade levels that meet in August and then once a month continue to meet with the guidance of the principals and Michael Kosmowski to look at information on how students are performing and also for screening for mental health and adjusting and reacting. It's all because you're a school board that has been consistently looking at the information, asking questions, but willing to back the administrators and also our staff, and we could not appreciate that more, and so thank you for those efforts.
All right, well, we're going to move on here to the last item on info, and that's the operating levy on November 5th.
So, shouldn't be a surprise, right? We've been having conversations for over a year, both for April 2nd and now for November 5th. We have a website that is up. There's been information that's been given out to every household, not just to parents, with a postcard. There'll be an additional postcard going out to all families as well. We want to make sure that people are always informed. It's not so much whether or not you have an opinion or not, it goes back to Main Street and the Sharks and the Jets, but having an opportunity to at least have an informed decision about what the values are and the impact is of what your vote is. I'm going to just put up here, obviously, the challenges that the board had to make, and those were significant changes that we have talked about, and as you know, went into immediate meetings twice a month starting in April of 2024, and impacted every department and also our partnerships with St. Joe's and the parochial school. Know that overall, that 33% of the districts in the state are asking or have an operating levy on the ballot on November 5th. 50% of all school districts in the state of Wisconsin over the last 12 months have had to turn to their community because it's not coming from Madison. And what's very almost mind-blowing for me as a leader within public education, spent a whole career in public education, is that we learned yesterday that the fund balance increased to $4.5 billion of taxpayers' money that sits not in a bank, but at the legislative level, that has been collected but not distributed for the purposes that it was collected for. Secondly, it has $2 billion for rainy day funds. We understand as a board, and we do have fund balances, and those are important. But right now, looking at 87% of 421 districts having to go out would suggest that something is inherently wrong with the formula. And there have been magnificent recommendations and suggestions that have fell on deaf ears, and for that, we ultimately have to turn to our community. We spoke earlier that one of the most probably second head scratchers of the day would be that understanding that not every school receives the same amount of money per pupil that comes through the threshold of our schools. And so you see the distribution from the left to right. There is an Association for Equity in Funding. They have been supportive of trying to increase low revenue districts. Prescott was one of the districts that has seen the floor rise, and right now they are trying to have 90% of all school districts within 10% of each other, and that is priority number one. Priority number two is to increase special education funding. 100% of all districts cross-subsidize the special educational programming. Prescott spends $1.9 million of Fund $10 and cross-subsidizes into the mandated programming for special education. If we were funded at an increase of from 33 cents to 60 cents on the dollar, we would save over $2 million in Fund 10 that could be invested back into salaries, programming, professional development, and operations. I'm going to ask Mike just to kind of, as we've gone out to the community, I think this is one thing that's been quite telling. We had the finance department put together across time just what are some of the core things that are fixed. We have to pay to keep the lights on. We have to pay to make sure that we have heated rooms. We have to pay for health insurance. But what's the difference between that chart and how we've been reimbursed?
Right. I mean, it's on the left. I think that the one thing on this slide that sticks out to me that everybody should understand is we've gotten less than 1% per year from the state over the last 9 years. 6.7% over 9 years. It actually figures out to be about 0.75% on average for the last 9 years per year that we've gotten from the state as an increase in our revenue stream. And you can see just some of the basic expenses here in just keeping the lights on in the buildings. I mean, we've almost doubled in electricity and heat, and then health insurance is another big one that factors into a budget. That can swing a budget into the black or red really quick. Mostly it's the red usually because it goes up so much, but when you're dealing with 1% a year or less of an increase in revenue from the state, and you have 83% of your budget is dedicated to people, I mean, do the math. It's not going to add up to good raises if we're going to just stick with the state level funding. We've done a fantastic job over the last decade just tweaking our budget, shrinking, optimizing, being efficient with our budget, to not go back for a referendum over the last 9 years. Because the 9 years is basically, that was the last time we went to that we had a successful operating levy. So we've been operating on that over the last 9 years, getting pretty much nothing from the state.
In addition, I thought it would be helpful just that it has been articulated with regards to the school board has identified 4 priorities. And I thought that it would be helpful for the board just to identify what those priorities were.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, if you guys want to anybody sneak in here, but we've had many work sessions over the last half a year to put together the list of priorities that if a referendum was supported, what do we want to bring back? We're not bringing everything back. Some of the things that did get cut, are not on this list, I'll just say. We overwhelmingly chose number 1 was staff compensation and getting that salary structure competitive with the neighboring districts around us who have passed operating levy increases and are getting more money from the state per pupil. For us, we have to, in order for us to be competitive, if we want to keep the scores and still be number 1, we have to do something about compensating our staff. Otherwise, we're going to see an exodus in this district if something doesn't change. And I invite anybody to jump in here at any point if you want to. But we overwhelmingly said that staff compensation was number 1. And then moving on, there's things that we did cut that we felt were pretty deep, and we rely on the administration to help us determine what that is. Plugging holes that the previous unsuccessful referendum left when we had to make the 1.3 million in cuts earlier this year. So we want to bring some of that back and also reinstate some of the athletics that were cut. The C-team athletics across the board were cut. There was cuts to theater. So basically all 3 of our main academics, athletics, and arts were all cut. We want to bring as much of that back as possible. But again, the majority, I think the main focus here is the staff piece, in my opinion. And if anybody else, again, jump in if you want here, but that was basically what we prioritized.
I'll jump in with educational programming because we did talk about that too, and I think just maybe being an educator, I understand that you don't just buy a curriculum and drop it in the laps of our staff and that's that. Like, it's constant training, it's refining, it's PLC time, it's collaboration time, and then it's cycling back through and looking at it all over again as things change and standards change and the way we have to teach our kids change because the needs of our students change. So in order for us to be the number 1 in our conference in multiple indicators, this educational programming is vital to all of that, and it doesn't just happen. It takes work and time, and it goes to the pedagogy of our teachers and how they teach in our classroom.
I guess I'll step in too with athletics and extracurricular activities. It's easy to say it's just sports or it's just a club, but it's not. For our children, they need those for social and emotional. And to be part of a community and to feel part of that community. So that was hard for us to cut anything, whether it was a C team, we've talked about that, or whether it was theater or a club that needed to be cut. That was tough, and that's tough to watch those kids' faces when they realize what they love is no longer here, or it's in a different manner that it was before. So that was a priority for us, just for our kids and for our staff, for social and emotional.
What's at stake, right? We talked about where the priorities are from a school board perspective, aligned with the administration. However, if it is not supported, we know, based on the scenarios that we have run, is that we would start to deficit spend starting next year. So you know that we are balanced for this year and this year only. We took out a line of credit as to mitigate risk, but that would likely be something that would be used should the referendum not be supported. In addition, we know that at this time, that additional $500,000 to $750,000 would have to be removed from the future budget. That is based on the enrollment that we talked about declining. The ball rolls off the table, we would see decreased revenue. Understand that this year, based on declining enrollment, we are receiving a net increase, even with the $325 added per pupil, of $75,000. We are running our expenses lower than the last 2 years, equal to and slightly above the 21-22 school year. And we're balanced for a year. And then this is the peak, unless something changes at the next biennium with regards to funding for Prescott Public Schools. Therefore, if it is not supported and we have to cut $500,000 and $750,000, more than likely, we would have to make sure that additional student fees, something that we prefer not to do in public education, would have to increase the student fees for some of the programs, the arts, and activities. We obviously would have to make deeper cuts beyond C-Team, the arts and the extracurricular. I want to thank Helen for pointing out that it's not just about the participation, but it's also about the engagement and the well-being that that creates. Class sizes, most likely at elementary, you can't go deeper on that because of it's based on sections, and our sections are hitting at the peak, and that would mean that there would be additional things that would happen either at specialists, middle school, and high school. Obviously, with 83% of our population being, 83% of our budget going toward people, you therefore have to reduce people. People deliver programs. And people, programs, and performance have excelled, but those would be things that would be challenging. Lastly, I know from being out in the community and after Vicki and I presented at the gathering place, it was very apparent that one of the questions that continues to resonate, and I know that people have asked, and I think it's a misnomer, and I thought Tanya did a nice job, is that we are aware that we have 4 facilities delivering instruction. We realize that we have declining enrollment. We are lower and have fewer students in over a decade, and it is on our radar to look at moving 4th and 5th grade so that we consolidate into 3 instructional facilities. We know that that would save costs both in food service, custodial, utilities, but it also is a necessary facility because we have a gym that is used for PCR. It is used for the community with pickleball. It is used for varsity and high school athletics. We know that we have programs that we used to lease space, and so district office, special education, community education would likely be located over to that facility. We also are providing a day treatment program and bringing in revenue, and that is something that we'll continue to explore to expand. But that facility for the short term is a high priority to be maintained, but it is highly unlikely that we can maintain it as 3 instructional buildings. I do want to be clear, though, that we'd rather do that in partnership with our 4th and 5th grade teachers. We'd rather do that in partnership with our 4th and 5th grade parents. We'd like to look at how our community is impacted by that facility no longer providing instruction, and how we can partner with Gathering Place, a promise that we made that would have a location within the district when we opened up this high school. If the referendum or levy is supported, it gives us the time to engage and be meaningful, strategic, and intentional in how that happens. If it is unsupported, it is highly likely that when I look at $500,000 to $750,000 needed to be reduced, I will more than likely be coming to you in December having a conversation about accelerating that move to forestall having to cut more staff. And so that is highly probable and something that we thought was important to put out there because it has been asked by many in the community, and this is the trade-off. Give us the time to do it in partnership and engagement with the community, or force us to have to make a drastic change without that engagement.
I want to make one comment on this because people ask me, well, why haven't we thought about this earlier? Why aren't we looking at going to 3 buildings earlier than this? This last year, with the facility referendum dollars and the projects that went into the buildings that it enhanced, it was the first year that this is really the first year that we can actually have that discussion in a realistic manner, because the buildings that we had were not equipped to handle the grade levels that we wanted them to be in. For instance, moving the 6, 7, and 8 to the new middle school on St. Croix. We couldn't do that without the referendum being passed and having that facility upgraded to handle the programming that is required and give those students the best experience that they could without that referendum passing. So now is the time to start talking about this. We as a board felt it was irresponsible to make this move until we had our facilities up to date.
Can I add to that? Because we did consider that, and we sent out a survey to the entire community, not just families, right? Our entire community. We worked with an outside organization that specializes in this, and so we thought, how much should we ask from our community for this facilities referendum? And we based off of that survey, which was a community impact survey, and what the community prioritized. And it was like very loud and clear. It wasn't even a question that the community did not support having 3 buildings at that time. They supported 4 buildings, and that was in 2021, I believe, or 2020. Probably 2021.
2019.
I was going to say,
okay.
I think it was just right after I had joined the board.
And so like...
School perceptions 2019.
So at that time, like even though that was a conversation we were thinking about, we put it out to the community, they said no. And so we made the decisions we did in order to prepare those buildings for if we needed to do that further down the road. So part of that, when I hear the community like, ask us, be transparent, we did. And that's what we were told, and we listened.
So lastly, just to kind of summarize, this was part of the budget conversation earlier today. It's a $1.2 million for 4 priorities. Understand that the operating levy question is on the back of the ballot. Remember to flip it. Make sure that you stay informed. This is the final mill rate with an impact. We now know, based on all the information coming together, for a $100,000 house, an annual impact will be $6.60, 55 cents per month, and a $500,000, $33 or $275. With that, this is the presentations that we have been providing out into the community. Also, information that is available on our website with frequently asked questions. At this time, I would just turn to the board to see if you have any last clarifying questions for Claire or myself, or comments or last word for the community.
Helen, do you want to start? Any comments here?
I have no questions, but I do have a comment. I think we've said it all in this meeting, and over and over we've met. We're coming to you in November because it's still needed. The 1.2 million is still needed. This isn't just a number that popped out of the air. This isn't just a willy-nilly to us. This is a big deal. And I know it's a big deal to the community because I've talked to a lot of them. They're very talkative. They, for the most part, understand why. And so this is for our teachers. This is for our students. This is for our buildings. This is for our future. And so we hope as a board, obviously, that the state steps up and that they start funding us the way they should and the way that they expect us to perform. We expect them to fund us in that way. So we ask for your support for our students and for the teachers. Yeah.
Vicki?
Yeah, the ask has been there. The cliff is coming. We've talked about that over and over. The legislature doesn't go back until January to give the next biennium a look. I don't know what their timeline will be on that. We may or may not know if there's an increase to funding before, the next school year starts. We may not. So that is a complete unknown. We need to prepare and be, in a situation that we can at least maintain. It's been a roller coaster ride in this district, and I think every district since COVID. There were so many changes, so many things happened, and then we ran into maintenance. We needed to do maintenance, and now we're needing to do operating. Our staff and our students need some consistency. We're asking the community to give us that consistency. We know we need to plan for the future. Give us that time to do that. That's what we're asking for. I met some grandparents who had been in the area, had raised their kids in the area in a neighboring district, moved out of the area, came back to this community because their grandkids go to school here in Prescott, and they had nothing but great things to say about the schools that their grandchildren attend, the opportunities that they've been given, the teachers. They're so amazed at what this district has become and is able to do for the students. And I think that's great. I mean, to hear someone really praise our district who, like 40 years ago had kids in a neighboring district and now sees what Prescott is and is just thankful that their grandkids are here. So I just ask for everyone to make this, it's such a small amount this go around. Like I said, we blessed or cursed, I don't know, with a property-rich area, so we've got that to lean on, and that has helped us out right now when we're coming and asking again. This is much, much lower than it was in the spring. We know we need to make changes. We're trying to do that, and as a district, I don't know that we can be any more responsible with the money we do have. We have pinched every penny and tried to be as thoughtful as we can with everything. So we're just asking for everyone's support in November.
Tanya.
Yeah, yes, the board is asking the community right now to support a $1.2 million reoccurring operating levy on November 5th. This ask is for our taxpayers, we found out is like $6.60 a year, and I wasn't even thinking a year when you first said that. And so when I think about what that means to like my family, that's like a cup of coffee or tea that my daughter Taylor buys almost every day at any of our local places. That's how much it is a year for us for a $100,000 home. And this levy for us is not really about adding any programs. We're not talking about adding any programs. We're not talking about expanding things. We're not asking to add staff really back in. We've already talked about the hot spots, and we'll continue to have those conversations. It's also not really about our facilities, but it is about maintaining our staff as our #1 priority here. And so according, I know our new report card is not out yet, but according to the most recent state report card, the Prescott School District, it's exceeded expectations as a school district based on the state ranking system. Not one of our schools underperformed, not one. We are ranked #1 in the Middle Border Conference for both student achievement and student growth. That's huge. We're in the top, I went back and looked at our old thing, and I think it was 10.3% in the state, in the entire state in our academics overall, and we were in the top 15% for student growth in the entire state. Those are huge things. This does not happen by chance, and I just want the community to really know that. This does not happen by chance. It comes from our leadership, all the way from Rick Rick, all the way to our administrators in every single building, to Mr. Kozmowski, and it goes to the pedagogy of our teachers within our system. Our teachers support and our support staff are experts at taking care of our kids, not only academically, and we can see that based on this. Like, our teachers, no doubt in my mind, are absolutely the best around. And because we have these kind of numbers, and we advertise these kind of numbers, and we share these kind of numbers, oh, look, I was right on. I share these kinds of numbers, other people also know that our teachers are the best around. And when I say teachers, I mean licensed staff in general. Our teachers provide high quality instruction every single day for our students. They don't back down, they show up, they're there every day. And not only are we talking about academics, we talk about the emotional needs of our students. And again, like, this is a community. I've lived all over, and you guys have maybe heard me say that, maybe not, but I did not go to the same school for more than 1 year until I was in 7th and 8th grade. That's the first time I went to a school for more than 1 year. And so when I and I chose to bring my family to this school district, and I've lived here before I had kids, what kept me in this community was the fact that my kids would have a sense of community that I didn't really experience. And I think that going to the homecoming, and by the way, hats off to homecoming, we had to do something really different. It was amazing. And if you went there, you saw the community like outcry and the involvement, and you saw our staff there engaged. That's not expected of us for our staff. They're not paid to come out to these events. They lined the streets. I walked all the way through that parade route to kind of see who was all out there. And we had so many staff out there. And then followed in chili feed. I think probably most of our staff, most of the chilies that were brought in were staff members or members that were really involved within our school district. They stayed for powder puff football games. I don't know if, I've had kids go through. People don't stay for, I was told anyways, parents don't watch powder puff games. And it was filled, and our fearless leader of the high school was out there announcing for our students. It was awesome. We had the little kids and the high school kids teaching them, some flag football stuff. That's what this community is about. That's what our staff is about. That does not happen without our staff. Another example is just last night, I had one of our amazing teachers call me because, we filled something out wrong, which happens all the time, and he showed up to my house with the paperwork and had me correct it. It was amazing. My daughter corrected it, I corrected it, and he left. That is not something. I bragged all day to my district that I work in that this is the kind of customer service we have in Prescott, and it's, to me, just speaks to the investment our staff has in our kids, and that shows up when we look at this. It's all about the kid, all around our kids. Roughly 82% of our budget goes towards staff. The vote on November 5th is about being able to follow through with the board's #1 priority, and that is retaining our staff, starting with being able to pay staff the salaries they deserve. This year, we gave all of our licensed staff, Rick down, licensed staff, a 2.5% raise. That was it. Okay, that does not keep up with inflation. That is not keeping up with our 50% of our surrounding school districts that passed a referendum to pay our teachers more than 2.5%. We're not keeping up with everybody else. Next year, 2.5% is not going to keep up. That gap that we see when we talk about state funding and all that, that's going to be our teacher gap compared to our other districts. About 5 years ago, we were comparable. We were right there. We're the middle part. That was our goal. The middle to the upper part, we were there. And now we're seeing that gap. Now our teachers are paid, if not the bottom of the middle border conference, next to the bottom. And I looked at those numbers maybe a month ago, and we're pretty close to the bottom. And I also want to point out, because of those stats that were up there, we are very much aware that we will be losing our teachers to other districts. And in part because other districts will be paying them more. In part, and we've already experienced this, because other districts know that we are the #1 district in our middle border conference, and they are actively recruiting our staff to come there, and they can pay them more. So that's an issue. Our staff stay with us because of the community the commitment that we have to each other here, probably their colleagues, all of that kind of stuff. But at some point, teachers have to make tough decisions based on their budgets as well, and that's the risk that we run into. So the last 2 work sessions, the board was really aligned with prioritizing what this referendum would mean to us, and it was about retaining staff. That was the number one thing. Yep, athletics, arts, that's low-cost stuff right there. That's not the same as putting the budget of, increasing everybody in the budget at a 4% raise, for example. That it doesn't even come. So the athletics and arts, that's something that we can do because it doesn't cost a ton. We can't take everything back, but we are prioritizing that the staff compensation is number 1. So I just wanted to say that for me, that November 5th date is about a lot of things, but for me, it really is about keeping our highly qualified and incredibly effective staff in our community.
Pat, tough one to follow. I don't want to repeat everything everybody said, but it is an opportunity. November 5th, everybody needs to go vote. Don't assume that the referendum is going to pass or that it's going to fail. You need to go out and vote. This is an opportunity for the community to decide what kind of district we're going to be. Tanya already kind of laid out the stats. I'm not going to repeat it. But we do not retain great staff by making cuts in that department. We do not retain great tech ed by cutting those programs. We do not retain, and this is just normal. This a state runner-up golf team and some of the theater performances and stuff. This isn't staged for today's meeting. This stuff is normal. You don't maintain those types of programs, by cutting. So this is an opportunity for the community to decide what type of district that we want to be. It's an investment in the community. It's an investment in your property. Without schools, we saw it during COVID. We know how important school districts are to communities. So without a strong district, we don't have a strong community. You don't have a strong investment. A couple things that I've been hearing kind of throughout the community that maybe even borderlines frustrating. Where's the money going? Everybody asks. Where's the money going? We talked about today, 83% of our budget is people, okay? 83% of that budget is people. Mike showed this up on one of his slides. 1% per year, less than 1% per year since 2015, right, has funding been increased. Everybody knows what that did to your households. Everybody knows what you saw at the grocery store, what you saw at the gas pump. Okay, now imagine the school district doing the same thing on less than 1% per year. So where did the money go? Fairly obvious. What the district was able to do in maintaining the programs it did, maintaining the appropriate staff levels, and then, as Michael showed today, is maintaining the results, which continue to be fantastic, was able to be done. But that doesn't happen with cuts. The other thing I hear, right, is transparency and community input, and I think, Tanya, you mentioned this too, as it relates to 3 or 4 buildings. We talked about the survey in 2019. There's probably been no less than 3 different points throughout time since probably 2015 that the middle school in particular, or 3 to 4 building discussion, that question hasn't been out in the community. At each time it was not supported. Every single time it was not supported. The transparency has been there. The community input has been there. I think the district has done an amazing job over the last couple of months with print, with web, with mailings, with paper, with radio, with community roundtables, with workshops that are open to the public, and again, of course, these board meetings and putting information out there. If somebody needs more information or feels that there is a lack of transparency, boy, please ask, because there's a lot of information out there, a ton of information. The 3 buildings, and I want to keep highlighting this, but what that will be if this is not supported, it'll force knee-jerk reactions. It'll force reactionary planning versus proactive planning, and that is the opposite of transparency and community input. So please get out and vote. If you need information, please ask. Call any of us, email any of us. I think all of our emails are on the school district website, but please reach out. And if we don't know the answer, we know where to get it.
Well, you guys said everything.
You're up. Yeah, but the last agenda item, I think, is final word from you.
Yeah. No, this is-
Final.
I honestly, I'm not gonna repeat everything that was said here. I'll just add on we're all local taxpayers. My property taxes, everybody in Prescott was reassessed last year. We all felt the same hit, and I watched my property value increase quite a bit, significantly, but for better or worse. So we're all living in the same community and feeling the same pain when it comes to the economy and property taxes and all that stuff. So we understand, and as a board, we really tried to be cognizant of, what did we really need? And we just came back to that 1.2 number over and over and over again. We tried to get it under that, but it didn't fit with what our standards were. So yes, what's different? The assessment, the overall pool is higher of equalized property value, so it doesn't make the mill rate. I truly think that in April, when it failed, when the mill rate would have jumped to quite a bit higher than what the mill rate is here. For whatever reasons, I know we have more property value, but it's spread across more houses and more value. So the mill rate does help, and I'm hoping the community understands that and is willing to help support this. The bottom line is, and Pat hit it earlier, the state has made this a decision for communities to decide on. Whether you could call the school funding system broken, you could call it a number of different things. But the bottom line is the state has put us in a position, whether it's by design, maybe it is by design, to have the local communities decide whether or not they want to fund public schools. And in Prescott, we've seen what we get from the state. It's 0.75% a year for almost a decade. You can't sustain that. We can't cut ourselves to excellence. We can't continue down this path and continue to be number one in just about every major category, and then other categories that we're excelling in too, like the tech ed program. That was amazing. So if we're going to continue the academic excellence that we've been able to see from our buildings and from our teachers and from our administration, from our kids, we need community support, and that's the bottom line. It's going to come down to the community to make this decision what type of school district we want to be, and I'm hopeful this time around, but get out and vote, and if you have any questions or have any gripes about anything, you can reach out to any one of us, and we're more than willing to take a phone call. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, there you go.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on, I guess. Recognition of visitors, same rules as before. Anybody care to be recognized at this time? Any of you guys want to come up here and say your name or anything like that? No? Oh.
Hello again, everybody. My name is Jonathan Nelson. You probably remember me from a few months ago. I seem to be developing a reputation for being the town loudmouth, so I apologize about that. But just considering the fact this is probably the last time we're going to have this conversation before November, I just wanted to kind of bring a perspective from the other side of the house, right? So with the failure of the referendum last year, we obviously lost a lot. We lost a lot of good people. We lost a lot of good programs. But most importantly, and this is the biggest thing that I talk to with other families, is the busing, right? The in-town busing was a huge hit for a lot of us. And I see those numbers up there and I go, that's nothing, right? I spend more money a year on gas just carting my kids around, right? Taking my son up to the high school for his advanced math class, taking those two kids over there to their school. And I can't even think about what's going to happen in the winter, right? My wife doesn't drive, she's chronically ill. Some of you may know her from working at the elementary school. I've got a job to do. I know a lot of other people got a job to do, and I know there's a lot of frustration and pain when it comes to previous conversations that we've had years ago from before we even came to this community. But my point here is that come winter, right, navigating all those hills, the bus was a big thing for us, right? And again, this is nothing. I spend more money on that, and keep in mind, I don't make a ton, right? I'm certainly doing fine. I know there are people out there who are hurting more than we are, but we're all in that kind of pain, right? But literally, that's a trip, right? That's a drive out to the Twin Cities. That's just one trip to Patuxent. That's chicken dinner. It's nuts, right? So again, I obviously don't come here prepared for these kinds of things, but this is my get mad meeting, right? I come here every month and I go, I just want to fix this. I want to go yell at Madison. I want to go yell at everybody else. So I just want to give that perspective, and I hope that there's more people online, because again, everybody online has heard me complain about the seating arrangement here, and I hope everybody understands, right, that this is something that really bothers us. And when it comes down to it at the end of the day, this is what brings people to Prescott, right? Without the school, we wouldn't be here. If the school continues to fail, we're probably going to leave, right? And that's going to be a death spiral for the whole town, not just the school system, right? And that's going to be more conversations about metered parking, right? Whatever else the city can do to raise those funds if people continue to leave. So everybody out there, I hope you consider that when you vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Ogren. I live in Diamond Bluff. And I think it's kind of ridiculous to ask the community to fund more. We already do. You were told no once. Why need to be told no again? It was very similar with the auditorium that was put up. We were told no. Wow, we didn't like that answer. We'll ask again. Oh, we didn't like that answer. We'll ask again. Why do we need to beat people? You were told no. It is a relatively small dollar amount. I won't deny that. But you keep adding those dollar amounts. Is this going to be the last time you ask for this? Because we were told that 8 or 9 years ago. So are we going to ask again in another 4 years, 6 years? The buckets keep filling up. Yet this is one drop. When do the drops stop? I'd also like to pivot a bit. Actually, it's kind of funny to see the bird of crows, because it's about the theater. The plan or the expectation to put on the performance for the musical. I believe it's wrong for students. I believe it's wrong to put on a show that's not acceptable for the entire audience. What other programs do we have in the school that are not age appropriate for K through 12? Kindergartners can go to anything else. Why are we putting on a show that's not appropriate for them? Why are we having people, children, they may be 15, 16, 18, they're still children, pantomiming, murdering people? I'm sorry, but that is abhorrent. And I find it disgusting that that's seen as acceptable. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else? Doesn't look like there's anybody in the audience. All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.